Plan for the fusion, plan for success. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and it's that time again for another fusion. So we are planning on the Incarnate. The Incarnate is an okay legendary champion, force affinity, defense based, should be fairly tanky, brings a lot of shields to the table, brings some ally protection and some strengthen. It's not a bad kit, it's just not a kit that screams they do anything particularly exciting or useful. It does, however, show as the type of kit that absolutely helps early game players progress through content by keeping them alive and protected. So if you're an early game, probably a good champion to think about going for. If you're mid game, may not be a bad champion to go for. Could help you in clan boss if you're struggling in clan boss. If it's a late game, I don't know where this champion really fits in. It could be helpful in Centranos. That's always the excuse of extra champions in Centranos never hurt, but I don't know if that's a type of champion I really would worry about. Big pain points for everyone, so I'd like to highlight these first, are the Dungeon Divers event. We have 3 Dungeon Divers events. One of them is a 4-day event, the other 2 are 3-day events. The one that is currently going on right now, along with the Fire Night tournament, is a 4-day event. That one overlaps with Ice Golem and Champion Training, as well as a full overlap with Fire Night. So if you're going to do a Dungeon Divers event, that's the easiest one to get, because you need to do all of Fire Night, and you can go hard in Ice Golem at the end of it and get that done. The second one here is at the end of Ice Golem, but is over the Champion Training Tournament we have right here, and then over the start of the Dragon Tournament we have shortly afterwards as well. I don't like this one quite as much because honestly I don't like going hard in Dragon, but we'll see what kind of what they're offering here in Dragon. Hopefully it's going to be something like Speed Gear, which is generally a pretty decent set. And then finally, at the end of the Dragon tournament, with champion training going, and then overlapping most of the Spider tournament, is the third Dungeon Divers event. Spider is usually pretty fast to do, so from a time perspective, that one's pretty easy to dive into and push for Dungeon Divers events. But the Dungeon Diver event points are still the 3,750 points, at least the current one is, and those are just really hard to do in the current way the raid is structured. Looking at those as pain points, plan accordingly. Go hard into Fire Knight, go hard on Ice Golem early for Dungeon Event 1, do some champion training, and then the Dragon hard for Event 2, and then do more champion training, and then the Spider for Event 3. I would not really plan on having Dragon ready much, because you're probably going to do most of your Dragon here for Event 2, if you're doing all those and not doing anything extra. The other wrinkle that they have thrown into this fusion is this Summon Rush right here is not the Summon Rush we have coming up this weekend. So there are no extra fragments in this weekend's Summon Rush. So be careful how many shards you pull. And then you're going to have to save them for Tuesday and Wednesday for, looks like, a 2-day Summon Rush event. Do be aware how these schedules work. So when these start on Thursday in the US, they start on Thursday morning. In some places, they might actually start Friday morning or Friday afternoon, depending on what time of the date line you're on. It is going to be different start times and different end times depending on where you are. I'm in the US, so I just generally assume they start morning, and they end the morning of. So this Fire Night tournament ends on Sunday morning. Don't expect to be running Fire Night on Sunday. Expect to run it overnight. Classic Arena, those are usually 2 gimme points. So Classic Arena is usually a pretty easy one to grab. This is, of course, happens during reset Sunday night, but if you're in Platinum, that's not going to be a problem. Otherwise, just make sure you get a bunch of fights in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during the day. Do your 5 dailies, do a few extra dailies. If you can do 10 to 15 a day, it's usually pretty easy to flow through that one. This one's going to be a little easier because this starts on Sunday but goes through Monday and Tuesday into Wednesday. So post reset, usually Arena is a lot easier, especially if you're in Gold 5 already, because a lot of people pull their defenses out early on just to let people hit them, and you have a lot of the easier defenses that'll be around on those days. So it should be hopefully pretty easy to farm. So for the Summon Rush here, this is going to be 4 or 5 Sacred Shards. 2,000, 2,500 points, usually pretty common for this type of event. And then You can certainly save up and use mystery shards if you want to. You can certainly use others as well. I just like saving up sacreds. This is what I like to use sacreds for. You get a decent shot at getting a legendary anyway, and it's just easy to pull a few of them. The summon rush here, I have no idea how many points that's going to be. Usually it's a total of 10 or 11 sacreds to get all of the fragments in a summon rush that has bonus fragments in it. So are we going to only need 6 or 7 for that summon rush, or are we going to need 10 to get all of the bonuses in that summon rush? I don't know. I honestly would plan for 10, and if it's 10, that's kind of gross actually, and I'm going to be kind of upset with Polarium because I think that is just a very unfair way to do this particular fusion. So the artifact enhancement events, we have 3 of them. They're spread out pretty evenly. This first one doesn't happen for a while, so you should have a bunch of money from farming Fire Knight, so hopefully that one's pretty easy for you. This one here is kind of in the middle, so you've got your champion training you're doing around there. You've got Ice Golem finished and Dragon starting. Those are 2 of the lesser silver dungeons, so that's going to be a little more difficult. And then Spider being the last one. If you're running Spider and then you deal with the artifact enhancement event after you run some Spider, that should be plenty of silver for you, hopefully, to get that one done. Generally, the easiest way to do those is to level up artifacts, not accessories. And I like to use it as a good time to roll up a bunch of my artifacts to +8 or +12. In my case, it's +12 for early game accounts. It may only be +8. So it's a good time to roll up some of your gear, see what gear is actually rolling fairly well, start cleansing a little bit of the gear you find you don't need because it rolls badly. And then on top of that, it's a good time to take some of your absolutely best gear that's sitting around not being used and roll that to +16. Not only does that let you know better what that gear can do, but getting something to +16 gives you the most points for the silver in general. So that's a good way to deal with it, is to get some things up to the +8 or +12, and if you find really good artifacts and identify them, roll those up to your +16. So we have the 2 champion training events. We have a champion training tournament from Sunday through Thursday, and then we have the champion training event on Saturday through Wednesday. Keep in mind, this Tuesday, the 18th, should be a personal reward CVC if we're going by the normal calendar. You know, Polarium can always throw a wrench in that, but usually they've been pretty consistent of late. So if you have some champion training you want to save for CVC, you certainly can do that. Otherwise, one of the reasons to do this champion training event early is because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 events through this champion chase here to get 3 of these fusions. As a void epic, this is 350 points towards champion chase. Save your fusions of the actual champion himself, the Slixus guy. Make sure you save him for pulling during that champion chase tournament. It should be 2x Ancients or 2x Voids, so hopefully it shouldn't be too hard to deal with for most people. One of the ways you can save shards and still get these champion chase tournaments is to pull some of these fusion champions during a champion chase. You actually could, if you get everything done, in fact, it looks like it does overlap. So if you get absolutely everything done, you can pull all 4 of these guys during this champion chase. So that's 1,300 points. Finish the champion, and then pull this champion during this champion chase for additional rewards as well. And that's going to be an additional 500 as well. So you can get 1,800, 1,800-ish points from pulling all of these on the champion chase. Now, keep in mind, though, the 500 you're going to get for the Incarnate will include getting the 25 from this tournament. So you're not going to have I get the champion for free because I'm doing the tournament. You need to be able to get those 25 fragments or do these 50 summon rush to get those 25. Plus, you're then going to have to push for doing the classic arena in one day, spider tournament in one day, finish champion training, and dungeon divers and artifact enhancement almost all in 1 or 2 days. So that's probably asking a lot from most players, so probably not something worth planning on, but it is an option if that's what you want to do. For early game players, I highly recommend going for at least one of these Void Epics. So if you're not going to do the fusion, do one of these Void Epics. They They're okay epics. I have to look at the kit to see exactly how good they are. Sometimes these epics are great, sometimes they're not. But because this is 350 points for a champion chase, you can use this for another fusion later on rather than having to save a ton of shards. Now, you should better off saving shards anyway for special events like 2Xs, and 2Xs are a great time to pull them for early accounts. But if you're not getting enough shards to do an event, you can save your shards for a summon rush, do the summon rush, and then load up later on. So this is actually a pretty good event to load up on maybe two of these epics and save them for a champion chase tournament somewhere down the line. So am I going for this fusion? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the way they're doing the summon rush here. I'm not a big fan of what they've done with dungeon divers, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of this champion. I can think of uses for this champion, but I can't think of a lot of high-end uses for this champion, and I cannot think of uses for this champion on either of my accounts. So I will probably walk my way through to this middle summon rush and see what's available on this middle summon rush, which means I'll probably be pulling 4 sacreds here on this summon rush. It's 4 sacreds in for investment, and if I decide to stop here, I will have had at least one copy of this, maybe two by that point in time. I'll probably end up picking two of them up, and I'll save them for a champion chase sometime down the road. And if I decide I really want the champion, then I'm in good shape. We'll see if I do this summon rush, and if I do this summon rush, I'll probably skip this dungeon divers and maybe this dungeon divers. We'll see. That is my plan. Hopefully, planning this out and taking a look at what events you need to do will help you out quite a bit. I will post this in my community tab. It's already in my Discord under the raid announcements because raid has actually posted it as well. I'm sure raid's posted at other social media sites and other places as well if you want to look at it from raid. But I'll post it down in my community tab to make it easier to find for some of you folks as well. Hopefully, this has been helpful. Until next time, I'm Bront CatHerder.